Look at your hands. Go on, look at them. Soft, smooth. The hands of a man who has never once started a fire that kept his children from freezing, never skinned the animal that became his dinner, never patched the boot that stood between his foot and frostbite. 100 years ago, your great-grandfather would have looked at those hands and known you were already dead. He wouldn't have been cruel about it. He'd just have known. Because the skills that kept him and everyone he loved alive were not hobbies. They were the difference between sundown and a funeral. Here is the brutal truth. Nobody wants to say out loud. We have outsourced our survival to a fragile web of trucks, power lines, and glowing screens, and we did it inside a single lifetime. The man who could read tomorrow's blizzard in the behavior of his cattle has been replaced by a phone that needs a cell tower to tell you it might rain. And when that web tears, and it will tear, the people who remember the old ways will eat. The rest will stand in the cold, blinking at a dead screen, waiting for help that is not coming. So pay attention. These are 25 things every ordinary American knew a century ago. Not experts, not survivalists. Farmers, mothers, children. Everyday people who would be horrified at how helpless we have made ourselves. Let's get them back. Number 1. Making fire without a match. Before the Strike Anywhere match was in every pocket, people carried flint and steel and a tin of charred cloth. You strike high-carbon steel against a sharp edge of flint, shave off a glowing spark of iron, drop it into char cloth, and nest that ember in dry tinder before breathing it to life. The physics is simple, and it has never failed in 10,000 years. Your lighter will fail you in a week. Number 2. Reading the weather off the sky and the animals. Red sky at night. Sailor's delight is not a nursery rhyme. It is atmospheric science. A red evening sky means dry, dust-laden air is moving in from the west on the prevailing winds. A red morning sky means that dry air has already passed and wet weather is rolling in behind it. Cattle lying down, swallows flying low. The ache in an old man's joints as the barometric pressure drops. These people had no app. They had 1,000 small signals, and they were rarely wrong. Number 3. Canning to preserve a harvest. A century ago, the difference between a family that ate in February and a family that starved was a cellar full of glass jars. Water bath canning for acidic fruits and pickles, pressure canning for low-acid meats and beans to kill botulism spores. The heat drives out air and seals the lid into a vacuum so tight no bacteria can grow. One good autumn of canning could carry a household clean through to spring. Number 4. Smoking and curing meat. No refrigerator, no problem. You salt the meat to pull out the water that bacteria need, then hang it in a smokehouse where slow, cool smoke from hardwood coats it in antimicrobial phenols. A properly cured ham would hang in the rafters for a year and feed the family the whole way through. We have replaced this knowledge with a humming box that dies the moment the grid does. Number 5. The root cellar. Dig down where the earth holds a steady 50 degrees year-round, and you have free refrigeration that needs no electricity, ever. Potatoes, carrots, turnips, apples, cabbages, all kept for months in the cool dark. Our ancestors understood thermal mass and humidity control with nothing but a shovel and a hillside. We forgot it the day the icebox arrived. Number 6. Butchering an animal. Most men a century ago could take a hog or a steer from living animal to packed larder and waste almost nothing. They knew which cuts to smoke, which to grind, how to render the fat into lard for cooking and the bones into broth. Today, most people have never seen the inside of the meat they eat and would gag at the work that has always stood between the pasture and the plate. Number 7. Tanning a hide. A skin left alone rots. But our great-grandparents knew how to scrape it clean, soak it in a solution of tannins leached from oak bark, and work it soft over days until it became leather that lasted a generation. Boots, harnesses, gloves, coats, the hide that we throw in a dumpster, they turned into the gear that kept them alive. Number 8. Making soap from lye and fat. Run rainwater through wood ashes, and you get lye, a caustic alkali. Combine it with rendered animal fat, and the chemical reaction called saponification turns two waste products into soap. Clean hands meant fewer dead children in an age before antibiotics. This single piece of kitchen chemistry quietly saved more lives than most doctors. Number 9. Making candles. When the sun went down, you made your own light or you sat in the dark. People dipped wicks again and again into melted tallow or beeswax, building the candle up layer by layer, or poured it into molds. They understood wick thickness, burn rate, how to keep a flame from guttering. We flip a switch and have no idea what to do when the switch does nothing. Number 10. Sharpening a blade. A dull tool is a dangerous, useless tool. Every man knew how to work an edge across a whetstone at a steady angle. Coarse grit to shape it, fine grit to polish it, a leather strop to bring it screaming sharp. A sharp axe split firewood in half the strokes. A sharp knife dressed game cleanly. Today, people throw away knives that just need 10 minutes on a stone. Number 11. Mending and darning. Clothing was expensive and precious, so nothing was thrown away over a hole or a torn seam. Women and men alike could darn a sock by weaving new thread across the gap, patch a knee, turn a frayed collar. A single skill that stretched a wardrobe across years. We buy $5 shirts and toss them at the first loose button. Number 12. Knots and harness work. The right knot was the difference between a load that held and a load that killed you. A bowline that would not slip, a clove hitch to lash a fence, a timber hitch to drag a log. Men could rig a harness, splice a rope, and trust their lives to a length of hemp. Most people today cannot reliably tie their own shoes twice. Number 13. Navigating by the stars. Find the 2 stars at the lip of the Big Dipper's bowl. Follow the line up 5 lengths, and there is Polaris, the North Star, fixed over true north, all night, every night. With nothing but the sky, our ancestors crossed oceans and prairies. We get lost in a parking garage the moment the phone battery dies. Number 14. Finding and judging water. A century ago, people knew that running water was safer than still, that water near cattle or downhill from an outhouse was death, that boiling for a hard minute killed what they could not see. They dug wells by hand, lined them with stone, and knew the signs of a tainted spring. Today, dehydration would kill the average person in 3 days because they would either drink poison or refuse to drink at all. Number 15. Blacksmith basics. You did not order a new hinge, a new latch, a new horseshoe. You heated iron in a forge until it glowed orange, and you shaped it on an anvil with a hammer. Even ordinary farmers could mend a broken tool, draw out a point or weld a crack closed in the fire. The whole material world was repairable in a way ours simply is not. Number 16. Herbal first aid. Before the pharmacy, there was the field and the kitchen garden. Willow bark for fever and pain, the very source of aspirin. Yarrow, packed into a wound to stop bleeding. Plantain leaf chewed and pressed onto a sting. Garlic and honey, both genuine antimicrobials, for infection. This was not superstition. It was pharmacology written in plants, passed mother to daughter for 1,000 years. Number 17. Trapping and snaring. A man could not stand in the woods with a rifle all day, so he set traps and let the woods work for him. A simple wire snare on a game trail, a deadfall baited and balanced, a figure, 4 trigger. He understood animal runs, scent, and patience. While he slept, the snares hunted. Calories caught for almost no calories spent. That math is what keeps you alive when food runs short. Number 18. Churning butter. Fresh cream, a churn, and a steady arm. The agitation breaks the fat globules until they clump into butter and separate from the buttermilk. Nothing wasted. The buttermilk went into biscuits and the butter kept for weeks when salted. A child's chore a century ago is now a mystery to grown adults who think dairy is something born inside a plastic tub. Number 19. Keeping a sourdough starter. Before commercial yeast in a packet, bread rose because you cultured a living colony of wild yeast and bacteria in a jar of flour and water and fed it every day. That starter could live for decades, passed down through a family, the secret to fresh bread anywhere, anytime, with no store and no supply chain. Let your starter die and you forget how bread itself works. Number 20. Splitting and seasoning firewood. Green wood will not burn worth a damn. It hisses and smokes and chokes a chimney with creosotes that burns houses down. Our ancestors knew to fell, split and stack wood a full year ahead, so it could dry below 20% moisture. They read the grain, swung them all into the checks, and stacked it bark up to shed rain. Heat in winter was a project you started in spring. Number 21. Grinding grain. Wheat and corn do not feed you as kernels. They feed you as flour and meal. People ran grain through a handmill or ground it between stones, then sifted it. A sack of whole grain stores for years where flour goes rancid in months, so the knowledge to mill it on demand was the knowledge to eat all winter. Almost nobody alive today could turn a bag of wheat into a loaf of bread. Number 22. Spinning and weaving. Wool off the sheep and flax from the field became thread on a spinning wheel, and thread became cloth on a loom. A family could clothe itself from its own animals and its own ground, start to finish. We have so completely outsourced this that the shirt on your back might have crossed 3 oceans, and you could not make a single thread of it to save your life. Number 23. Working draft animals. A horse, a mule, or an ox was the engine of the farm, and you had to know how to harness it, drive it, plow with it, and keep it sound and fed. When the fuel pumps run dry, a man who can put a team to a plow is a man who eats, and the man who only knows how to press a gas pedal is not. Number 24. Basic midwifery and home doctoring. A century ago, babies were born at home, bones were set at the kitchen table, and fevers were nursed through the night without a hospital in reach. Ordinary people knew how to stop bleeding, splint a break, bring down a fever, and tell the difference between a sickness that would pass and one that would kill. They had to. Help was a day's ride away, if it came at all. Number 25. Saving seed. This is the one that makes all the others possible. Our ancestors did not buy seed every spring. They saved the best of each harvest, dried it, stored it dry and cool, and planted it the next year. They understood which plants ran true and which would not. A people who can save seed can feed itself forever. A people who cannot must buy their very existence, season after season, from someone else. Now stand back and look at the whole picture. Every single one of these skills was once ordinary, not heroic, not rare, just the baseline of being a functioning adult human being on this continent. Your great-grandparents carried all of it without thinking, the way you carry the ability to scroll a screen. In the span of 3 or 4 generations, we traded the deep, redundant, unkillable competence of self-reliance for the thin convenience of a system that only works when everything else is working too. That is not progress. That is a high-wire act with no net, and we are all out on the wire, smiling, looking at our phones. The good news, the only news that matters, is that none of this knowledge is lost. It is just sleeping. Every skill on this list can be learned in an afternoon and sharpened over a season. You do not have to master all 25 tomorrow. You just have to refuse to be helpless. Pick one. Learn to make fire. Learn to can a jar of tomatoes. Learn to find north. Then pick another. Because the people who came before you did not survive by being soft, and the people who come after you will not survive on your behalf. So get your hands dirty. Learn the old ways while there is still time to learn them gently, and stay alive out there.